Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. Just a comment, I think, on Erica Kirk, the wife of Charlie Kirk, and some of the controversies surrounding her. And I thought it was weird when at the memorial when she was hugging President Trump after she'd just given a speech for her husband's funeral, and she kind of did that weird thing with her hands. And people read into it for what it is. I take it as my impression of her is she has lost her husband. I think she's been pretty Christian. I mean, for a woman her age, she's about the same age as my kids. So again, I know the generation very well. The kind of kids that were growing up at that time and how they see the world, what their influences were. They go to a lot of music concerts and, doing the thing with the hands. People don't always know why they do what they do. And, I think, you're all of a sudden catapulted onto a stage, taking over for your husband, this big turning point job that had a lot of presence to it. And while you're sad and you're trying to figure out how to raise your kids without a dad, and you're doing all the normal morning stuff, and you go into survival instinct, and you got to put forth a public face, and you're giving speeches, and now you're CEO of something your husband created, and you try to put on a strong face, and you're up there hugging the president of the United States. I've always liked Charlie Kirk, and I think his election coverage with his guys was some of the best that's out there. You don't get much better political coverage than Charlie Kirk with Steve Bannon and Jack Posobiec and all those types of people. John Solomon. So I always looked at Charlie Kirk as being very solid, but he's a young guy. And he was an up-and-coming guy, and he was developing a personality, but he took on a martyrdom when he was assassinated. And people transfer their emotions onto figures. And, there's a desire for people to turn him into a Christ-like figure because they're missing that in their lives. And, as a deceased person who was assassinated, you become, for the Christian right, Martin Luther King character, had said some wise things and was playing back, and he became catapulted into a larger-than-life figure, which he wasn't prior to the assassination. So, the Bible sales exploded after that. A lot of people who were their age. Again, I have daughters that age, so I know the impact it had on that generation of people. I know the influences very well of them. They're trying to find their way in the world. In a lot of ways, they've been let down by generation that came before my generation. Generation came before mine. There's this expectation of compounding investment, that everyone was going to keep buying houses and investments would continue to go, and Social Security would always be there for everybody, and optimism would always be around. And a lot of those dreams that bubble burst, essentially they're the 2010s. And these people in their age group, there being Charlie Kirk and his wife Erica. They replaced that burst bubble with faith-based religion, Turning Point USA into an alternative for young people, and I always thought it was a great thing. And again, Charlie Kirk was always reliable, and his podcast was full of great information, and I was always encouraged that his generation was finding redemption through characters like him as they emerged. And I always thought Candace Owens was a good character too. But people don't stay stable forever, especially when you start having children and you start feeling the biological pressures of motherhood. It becomes difficult to hold it together. People go through a lot of changes in life. And, that's why I attribute to Candace Owens having, some of the fluctuations in her personality. I've said of her before that I thought she'd be a great president. And since she started having children, she's probably it's one thing to have opinions when it's just you and you wake up every day, just you, and you read what you want, you watch what you want, and you develop yourself individually. It's another thing when you start becoming responsible for other people, and then you become a mother and a wife, and you have a lot of things that pull on you as a person. It's much harder to maintain a stable front. And so I don't question. I think everybody will go through their journey, and Candace Owens is going to go through her journey, and any kind of controversy she thinks is going on with Charlie Kirk's murder still comes down to hurt feelings. People that you like and are part of your life at a period of time, and you might drift over those years. It changes. Maybe the essence of the people don't change, but the ways that they deal with reality might change. So people looking for Erica Kirk to turn into Mother Mary, in essence, she's just still, her and Charlie were only married for 4 years. She dated other people before them, seriously. Apparently she was Christian-based for most of her life, all of her life. Are there pictures of her being a little bit of a wild child in college? It looks like it. Got to watch what you do as a person, and watch the stuff you put on TikTok. And it might seem fun to do all the little kissy stuff with your girlfriends in parties and places where everybody's intoxicated. It might seem cool at the time, but when you're trying to be a serious person later, and you take on the mantle of a CEO of a Christian-based youth movement, it's people, the enemies are going to try to exploit that. That's all I see happening with her. I think at 37 years old, I think is what she is, 37, 38. I think she's a great young woman, still trying to find her way in life. She, at that age, I think her and Charlie Kirk were doing a great job, and it's a shame that he was shot and killed the way he was. I don't know how she's supposed to deal with it or react to it, and people reading too much into it. I mean, I think, everybody deals with stuff differently. I mean, is she supposed to be crying all the time over every little thing? I don't think so. Everybody deals with stress in their own way, and I think she's putting on a brave face, and she puts her sorrow, on the back burner of her own life, and she's got to find her way through it all. I mean, it's a terrible thing to go through, and to go right from that into becoming CEO of that company of Turning Point USA. That's a big job. That's a hard thing to do on a good day when you don't have to deal with sad things like this. So I don't blame her if she stumbles a little bit, if she sends mixed messages with her hands, or starts looking like she's on ground that a lot of people never go on. And I don't think bad of her at all. I think she'll find her footing, but I think it's a lot to expect out of a person to become essentially the mother of Jesus, almost, is what people expect out of her. And really, she's just a 37-year-old young lady with a couple kids and a husband that was assassinated, taking on a big job on the biggest political stage there is on planet Earth right now. And it just sort of happened that way because of the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. And she was the wife. And she's bravely trying to pick it up and take it on. But if people question how she's supposed to present herself, that maybe she shouldn't wear certain kinds of clothes or wear jewelry, and she's supposed to become a nun for the rest of her life, I think that's unrealistic and not really fair to her. There's a lot of things that's not fair to her. But I think it's worse that people are looking so desperately for somebody in their life that they can invest themselves into, and they can't do it to themselves. So they pick these figures, and that's what's expected of her as a result of replacing the emptiness that people feel because Charlie Kirk's not here anymore, because he was killed the way he was. And Christians needing to forgive the way that they base their faith on forgiveness doesn't really give them a discharge for the emotions they feel. So that leaves a lot of hard feelings if she doesn't portray what in their minds she's supposed to be. So I don't have any. I don't think there's any conspiracy about Erica Kirk and some plot, undermine plot to embed Turning Point USA into some sort of counter movement against the political order of now, or that everything we see is some kind of level of deceit. It's the same thing people are saying about Trump and the Gaza Strip, and trying to make peace with the Palestinians, Hamas, or working with them in some way to push them out of the Gaza Strip and force disarmament. Always, because of working with Israel, there's always going to be people who are going to associate some nefarious claim. And I understand when you don't have all the answers, trying to bridge the gaps of conspiracy with the DNA of speculative thought in order to try to connect ideas in some way that makes sense. And there's a lot about the murder of Charlie Kirk that has serious problems. But I think Erica Kirk is a nice young lady that was married to Charlie Kirk, and they were having a pretty good life together, and they fed off each other pretty well. Whatever happened in his life before her, and her life before him, they weren't married very long. They made a good 4 years out of it, but she's got to live a long life, and a lot of stuff's going to happen in her life for a long period of time. And to expect her to essentially go into sainthood a few months after she had to witness her husband's death with a brutal assassination, it's just too much. And probably for her own mental health, she should take 4 or 5 years and just raise kids and not be the front person for anything. But she wants to carry on her husband's legacy, and that's going to lead to a whole series of adventures in her life that will probably benefit a lot of people. But the impact it has on mental health of a person and how they rise to the occasion, no doubt that there's going to be stumbles. And a lot of the speculation people have about her, I think that that's all it's going to ever be, is her trying to live up above and beyond her emotional loss. And people are going to be critical over Canal. She has this public face and this very public stage that she's on. It'd probably be better for her if she wasn't on that stage for her own good. But she's trying to do the job, and it'd be hard for Charlie Kirk to do the job under those reverse conditions. What they were able to do as a couple and what Charlie was able to do to build Turning Point USA up to where he was basically being a happy father with a happy wife and kids and living their best life in their 30s. And living every day well. And it showed in the work they did. And when that gets cut short, there's going to be sorrow, and it's a hard thing to get up every day and try to put on those same pairs of pants and do that work when you're not feeling it. And when people have to push themselves to feel it, it's going to come out a little phony sometimes. And I think that's definitely where Erica Kirk is kind of stuck. And I hate to see people criticizing her or Turning Point USA over anything. It's probably the best movement that there is for young people right now. And that's one of the reasons why Charlie Kirk was targeted for assassination, because young people like the killer didn't want to hear it. And so they've been taught that if you don't like the reality that you're given, you can get rid of it somehow, or edit it, or delete it. And in this case, this person, Tyler Robinson, wanted to delete the pressure that made him feel bad about his choices. And that was getting rid of Charlie Kirk. But if Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA isn't there to do what it's doing, someone else will pick the mantle up. I don't know that Erica Kirk has to do it. If she can, that's great. If she wants to, that's all right too. It's probably too much to ask of her. And it's not a conspiracy to make mistakes when you really need a grieving period. And it'd probably be better for her to go take vacation somewhere with the kids for a few years and drop off the face of the earth for a bit while she gets her head together, because it's an awful lot to do, and it's a big job to step into her husband's shoes and expect to hold it together every day. And when people play recordings of how she is and how she talks, I'd say there's layers and layers of hurt that she has to put on a happy face and talk in front of, and it ends up sounding phony because there's so much hurt you're burying. That's what I see going on, and I don't think it's a conspiracy of any kind. And I think she's a pretty good young lady. And Charlie Kirk certainly was a great young man. But if but life's going to move on, and the movement's going to rise through them or through some other means, because it's not them that brought it forth. They're just the vehicles of its transference. And she shouldn't feel like she has to carry the whole thing. And I think she does. And I think that's where a lot of the feelings of conspiracy reside, is because they look at her and see her and watch her, and they think of her being insincere because they're living vicariously through her. And they expect her to be some kind of saint or a nun that will always be dedicated to Charlie Kirk for the rest of her life. And I think that's just unrealistic. And she knows that, and it comes across in all kinds of competing emotions, and people take that, and because it doesn't match what they think about her, and they turn it into a conspiracy. And that's probably not fair to her at all. Not fair to anybody. But I think she's doing a pretty good job, and I hope Turning Point USA does well. And if it doesn't, then someone else will pick it up and call it something else and do something else, because the movement won't stop with them. Again, they were just the vehicles of the implementation of a movement that needs to find its way in the human race. And I think Erica Kirk deserves a lot of support for what she's gone through. And I hope she gets it. And I hope I hope people will. I'd like to see them give her a fair shake to get her right in her own head, but that's not going to happen in a public position or a public job at all. But I hope she comes out well because of it. It's an awful lot to deal with as a young person, or any person for that matter, but especially as a young person. That's a pretty tough hill to climb, and I think she's done a pretty good job of it. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.